On February 25, 2005, a 12-year-old boy walked into a room and found a skeleton. The skeleton belonged to the person he loved most in the world. It was sitting upright, surrounded by the remains of Fire Nation soldiers, in a temple that should have been full of laughter and wind and the sound of flying bison. The temple was silent. The boy screamed, and the scream triggered a power so immense that it shook the foundations of the building and sent a beam of light into the sky that could be seen from miles away. The show cut to commercial after the scene. Children across America sat in their living rooms and tried to understand what they had just watched. The skeleton was never explained. The show never told you how Monk Gyatso died. It never told you how an airbender surrounded by the bodies of dozens of firebenders met his end in a sealed room at the top of a mountain. It left the question open, and the openness was worse than any answer could have been, because your imagination filled the silence with possibilities that a children's show could never have aired. That was the third episode. The show had barely begun, and it had already shown you a genocide. Before we go further, subscribing helps keep these long videos coming, and it costs nothing. Now, back to the dark. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a show that aired on Nickelodeon, a network whose primary audience is children between the ages of 6 and 14. It ran for 61 episodes across 3 seasons from February 2005 to July 2008. It featured bright colors, animal companions, slapstick comedy, and a cast of characters young enough to attend middle school. It also featured genocide, murder, child abuse, brainwashing, suicide ideation, parental abandonment, systemic oppression, and the psychological destruction of a 14-year-old girl. The show contained all of these things simultaneously, without contradiction, because the show understood something that most children's programming does not: that children are not fragile, that children can handle darkness, if the darkness is honest, and that the worst thing you can do for a child is pretend that the dark does not exist. The darkest moments in Avatar are not the loud ones. They are not the battles or the explosions or the dramatic confrontations. The darkest moments are the quiet ones, the pauses, the looks that characters exchange when words are insufficient, the scenes where the camera holds on a face for 2 seconds longer than it should. And in those 2 seconds, you understand something that dialogue could never communicate: that this character is in pain, that this pain is real, that the show respects you enough to show it to you without flinching. You are going to hear about these moments now, all of them. The ones that made you pause the episode and stare at the ceiling. The ones that stayed with you for days. The ones that, even now, years later, produce a small, involuntary tightness in your chest when you think about them. These are the moments that earned Avatar its place in the conversation about the greatest animated series ever made. Not the action sequences, not the mythology, not the bending battles, the darkness. The honest, unflinching, compassionate darkness that a show on Nickelodeon gave to its audience and trusted them to carry. The Southern Air Temple is the episode that taught you what kind of show this was going to be. Book 1, Chapter 3. Aang returns home for the first time in 100 years, and the show structures the episode as a slow revelation. Aang does not know what happened. The audience does, because the show has already told you about the war, about the Fire Nation, about the 100 years that passed while Aang slept in the iceberg. You know what he is going to find. He does not, and the distance between his hope and your knowledge is the engine of the entire episode. Aang walks through the temple pointing out landmarks. The airball court, the meditation pavilion, the spots where he and his friends used to play. And with each landmark, the show gives you a brief flash of what the temple looked like before, populated with monks and bison and children, bright and alive and full of movement. The contrast with the present, empty and overgrown and silent, is devastating. But Aang does not see the contrast. He sees the temple through the lens of memory, and his memory is 100 years old, and the temple in his memory is still alive. Sokka tries to prepare him. Katara tries to protect him, but neither of them can prevent the moment when Aang walks into the sanctuary and finds Gyatso. The skeleton is sitting in a pose that suggests Gyatso died fighting. Around him are the helmets and armor of Fire Nation soldiers. The implication is clear, even to a young viewer. Gyatso killed these soldiers before he died. An airbender, a monk, a pacifist, a man who taught Aang to value all life, killed people in his final moments. And the show does not explain this. It does not justify it. It does not frame it as heroic or tragic or necessary. It simply shows you the evidence and lets you sit with it. Aang's reaction is primal. It is not grief. It is something before grief, something more raw, something that does not have a name. The Avatar state triggers involuntarily, and for a moment, Aang becomes the most dangerous being on the planet, radiating power that threatens to destroy the temple itself. Katara reaches him. She holds him. She speaks to him quietly, beneath the wind and the glowing and the fury, and she tells him that she and Sokka are his family now. The Avatar state subsides. Aang comes back, and the show gives you a brief, brutal shot of his face as the glow fades and the reality settles. He is 12 years old. He has just learned that everyone he knew is dead. Everyone. Not some, not most, all of them. Every monk, every child, every teacher, every friend, everyone who ever knew his name or threw him a birthday party or argued with him about chores. Gone. 100 years gone. And he is the last one. The last airbender. The last connection to a civilization that no longer exists. The show aired this on a Saturday morning on Nickelodeon, between commercial breaks for cereal and action figures. This is what darkest means when you talk about Avatar. Not the violence, the emotional violence. The precision with which the show finds the tender places in its characters and presses on them until something gives. The willingness to let a 12-year-old boy discover a genocide and show you every second of his response without cutting away, without softening, without offering easy comfort. The comfort comes later, and it is real and it is earned. But the show earns it by going to the dark place first, by trusting that the darkness is survivable, by trusting you to survive it alongside the characters. Appa's Lost Days is the episode that breaks people who thought they were past the point of being broken by a cartoon. It aired on October 13th, 2006, as the 16th episode of Book 2. It is the only episode of the series that takes place entirely from the perspective of an animal, and it is by almost any measure the most emotionally brutal 22 minutes of television Nickelodeon has ever produced. The premise is simple. After Appa is stolen by sandbenders in the Siwang Desert, the episode follows Appa's journey alone through the world. He is captured, he is caged, he is put in a circus where he is forced to perform. He escapes. He is attacked by other animals. He is hurt. He wanders. He searches for Aang. He does not find Aang. The episode is structured as a series of small humiliations. Each one is minor on its own. A cage that is too small. A trainer who uses fire. Chains around his feet. A muzzle. Taken individually, none of these details are graphic or violent in the traditional sense. The show does not show blood. It does not show explicit cruelty, but the accumulation of these small indignities, the way they pile up scene after scene, the way Appa's spirit visibly diminishes with each new constraint, is worse than any single act of violence could be, because what you are watching is not a battle. It is a breaking. The slow, systematic, institutional breaking of a living being that cannot speak and cannot explain what is happening to it, and cannot ask for help. The circus sequence is the hardest to watch. Appa, the sky bison who has flown through storms and carried the Avatar and played with children and slept under stars, is standing in a ring surrounded by a cheering audience, performing tricks because a man with a whip taught him that the alternative to performing is pain, and the audience cheers. The audience does not know that this animal was stolen. The audience does not know that this animal has a family. The audience sees entertainment, and the show forces you to watch the entertainment through Appa's eyes, and through his eyes, it is not entertaining. It is a nightmare. There is a moment in the episode where Appa finds a brief sanctuary. A kind person, Guru Pathik at the Eastern Air Temple, treats his wounds and speaks to him gently and tells him where Aang is. And for a moment, the darkness lifts. For a moment, you believe that the episode is going to end well, that Appa will find Aang and the reunion will be joyful and the suffering will have been worth it. Then Appa arrives in Ba Sing Se and is captured by the Dai Li. Long Feng, who has been searching for Team Avatar's weakness, chains Appa beneath Lake Laogai, and the episode ends not with a reunion, but with another cage, another dark room, another set of chains. The episode takes 30 minutes to deliver a single message. The world is not safe for vulnerable creatures, and the institutions that claim to protect them are often the instruments of their captivity. The episode won an Annie Award. It deserved to win something larger, something that does not exist, an award for making an entire generation of viewers understand, through the experience of a fictional animal, what captivity feels like from the inside. The desert is the episode where Aang comes closest to becoming the thing he is supposed to oppose. Book 2, Chapter 11, which aired on July 14th, 2006. Team Avatar is stranded in the Siwang Desert after the library sinks into the sand, and Aang has just learned that Appa was taken, stolen, muzzled, dragged away while Aang was underground, unable to help. The desert episode is about rage, not the clean, focused rage of a hero in battle, the ugly, directionless, corrosive rage of a person who has lost something they love and has no one to fight and nowhere to put the feeling. Aang cycles through the stages of grief at accelerated speed, but the stage he lingers on, the one the episode keeps returning to, is anger. Cold anger, the kind that makes your voice flat and your eyes hard and the people around you afraid, Watch the way the other characters react to Aang in this episode. Katara takes charge. She does not ask Aang to lead because she can see that Aang is not capable of leading right now. Sokka is delirious from cactus juice, which provides the episode's only relief from the mounting tension. Toph is blind on sand, more vulnerable than she has ever been, unable to see and unable to help. And Aang is somewhere else entirely, somewhere behind his own eyes, in a place where the anger lives. The confrontation with the Sandbenders is the episode's climax, and it is terrifying. Aang demands to know who took Appa. One of the Sandbenders admits it, and Aang enters the Avatar state, not the controlled, channeled Avatar state of a master, the raw, involuntary, destructive state of a child who has been pushed past the limit of what a child should have to endure. The wind rises. The sand rises. The Sandbender vehicles begin to break apart, and Aang, glowing and furious and barely recognizable, moves toward the Sandbenders with an intent that the show never specifies, but that the animation makes clear. He is going to hurt them. He might kill them. The power is building, and the power does not care about mercy or restraint or the teachings of the monks. The power cares about one thing. Appa is gone. Katara stops him. She walks into the storm, into the wind and the sand and the fury, and she takes his hand. She does not speak. She does not argue. She does not try to reason with him, or calm him, or appeal to his better nature. She holds his hand and she waits. And the glow fades, and the wind dies, and Aang collapses, and he cries, and Katara holds him while he cries, and the episode ends. This is the moment where the show shows you what the Avatar could be if compassion failed, if love was not enough, if the rage won. And the show makes clear, through the animation, through the music, through the reaction shots of every character in the scene, that the rage winning would be catastrophic. Not because Aang would destroy the world, because Aang would destroy himself. He would cross a line that cannot be uncrossed, and the boy who valued all life would become a boy who took life, and the taking would hollow him out, and leave nothing but the power, and the power without the boy would be the most dangerous thing on the planet. Katara's hand is what prevents this. One hand, one person, one active presence that cuts through the fury and reminds Aang that he is not alone. That Appa is not all he has, that there are people standing in the sand with him right now who love him and need him and will not let him fall. This is the show's argument about darkness. That the darkness is real, that it lives inside good people as well as bad ones, that the same power that saves the world can destroy it. And the difference between saving and destroying is not strength or skill or bending technique. It is connection. It is the hand in the storm. It is the person who walks toward you when everyone else walks away. The Tales of Ba Sing Se aired on September 29, 2006, and it contains 5 stories about 5 characters exploring the city. 4 of the stories are light, funny, charming, exactly what you expect from a mid-season interlude. And then the 5th story begins, and the 5th story is about Ira, and the 5th story will destroy you. The tale of Ira follows the old general through a day in Ba Sing Se. He helps a crying child. He sings a song for a man who is struggling. He gives advice to a group of muggers. He is kind, consistently and effortlessly kind, in the way that only people who have survived great pain can be kind. And then the sun begins to set, and Iro walks to a hilltop under a tree, and he sets up a small memorial and he begins to sing. Leaves from the vine, falling so slow, like fragile tiny shells drifting in the foam. He is singing to his son, Lu Ten, the son who died at the siege of Ba Sing Se, the son whose death broke Iroh and remade him, transforming a Fire Nation general into a tea-loving wanderer who helps strangers and gives wisdom to the lost. The son who Iroh carries everywhere in every scene, in every episode, as an absence that shapes everything he does. Iroh's voice breaks during the song. The character's voice breaks because the actor's voice broke. Meiko Iwamatsu, the voice actor who brought Iroh to life, recorded this scene knowing that he was dying. He had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer. He died on July 21st, 2006, 2 months before the episode aired. The episode is dedicated to him. The words appear on screen at the end of the scene, in honor of Meiko. The layers of grief in this scene are almost impossible to separate. You are watching a fictional character grieve for his fictional son, performed by a real man who was grieving for his own real life, creating a moment that exists simultaneously as story and as reality, as performance and as truth. The tears on screen are Iroh's tears and Meiko's tears, and, if you are like most people who have watched this scene, your tears. The grief is all of these things at once. It is fiction and it is not fiction. It is a cartoon and it is the most real thing you have ever seen. This scene should not work on a Nickelodeon show. It should not work in any context that involves bright colors and animal companions, and an episode where Sokka accidentally ate poison berries and hallucinated a giant mushroom. But it works. It works because the show has earned it. Because the show has spent every episode before this one building Iroh as a character who is defined by a pain he never discusses, a loss he never explains, a grief he carries like a second skeleton beneath his skin. And when the show finally shows you the source of that grief, when it finally lets Iroh sit under a tree and sing to his dead son, the moment lands with the force of everything that came before it. The creators have said in interviews that this scene was the hardest to produce, not technically, emotionally. The animators knew about Mako's condition. The writers knew, everyone in the production knew that they were creating a scene about death performed by a man who was dying, and the knowledge made every frame heavier. And now you know too. And now the scene is heavier still, because every time you watch it, you are watching a man say goodbye. Not just Iroh to Lu Ten, Mako to everyone. The character and the actor tangled together so completely that separating them is not possible and not necessary. The grief is real either way. The darkness is real either way. And the beauty of it, the terrible, aching beauty, is that it exists at all. That a show for children created a moment of such devastating emotional honesty that adults watch it and weep. That a cartoon about a boy with arrow tattoos produced one of the most genuinely heartbreaking scenes in the history of television. That Mako Iwamatsu, in his final performance, gave the world a 2-minute song about leaves and vines that will be remembered longer than most films. This is darkness, not violence, not horror, not shock. Grief. The quiet, private, ordinary grief of a man who lost his child, sitting under a tree, singing a song that nobody else can hear, in a city that does not know his name. Zuko Alone is the 7th episode of Book 2. It aired on May 12, 2006, and it is the episode where the show reveals, in full and without mercy, what Ozai's family did to its own members before they ever did anything to the rest of the world. The episode follows Zuko, alone and wandering through the Earth Kingdom after separating from Iroh. He is hungry, he is tired, he is, for the first time in the series, completely without support. No crew, no ship, no uncle, just Zuko, his dual swords, and a scar that marks him as Fire Nation in a world that hates the Fire Nation. He stops in a small Earth Kingdom village. He meets a family. He helps their son Lee, a boy who reminds Zuko of someone. And through the present-day story of Zuko in the village, the show intercuts flashbacks to Zuko's childhood in the Fire Nation Palace. And the flashbacks are where the darkness lives. Young Zuko is a sensitive child. He feeds the turtle ducks in the pond. He plays with his mother. He is clumsy and earnest and eager to please, and none of these qualities are valued in the Fire Nation Palace. Azula is the prodigy. Azula is the one who performs. Azula is the one Ozai watches. And when Ozai watches Azula, his eyes hold something that might be pride. When Ozai watches Zuko, his eyes hold nothing. The flashbacks reveal, scene by scene, the machinery of Zuko's damage. Ursa, his mother, loves him but cannot protect him. Azula torments him with casual cruelty that she learned from watching their father. Ozai dismisses him. Azulon, their grandfather, makes a demand that the show implies but does not fully explain. A demand that involves Zuko's life, and the implication is that Ozai was asked to sacrifice his own son and that Ursa intervened, and that the intervention cost Ursa everything. Ursa disappears. She vanishes in the night, after a scene where she wakes young Zuko and tells him that everything she has done to protect him. She tells him to never forget who he is, and then she is gone. And young Zuko wakes up in the morning, and his mother is not there and will never be there again. And no one explains why, and the absence opens a wound in Zuko that the rest of the series is about. The present-day story mirrors the flashback. Zuko helps the village boy. He fights the Earth Kingdom soldiers who are bullying the village. He wins. And then, in his moment of triumph, he reveals his identity. He tells them his name. And the village, the family, the boy he helped, all of them look at him with fear and hatred. Because he is Fire Nation. Because the scar on his face identifies him. Because in the Earth Kingdom, there is no such thing as a good Fire Nation citizen. Zuko leaves, alone, the way he arrived. And the episode ends with a shot of him walking away from the village, walking toward nothing, carrying the weight of 2 rejections. The first from his father, who burned him. The second from the world, which cannot see past the burn. This episode is dark because it offers no comfort. Every other dark episode in Avatar contains a moment of release, a hug, a reconciliation, a statement of love or loyalty that softens the blow. Zuko Alone offers nothing. It ends with a boy walking alone into an empty landscape, rejected by everyone he has tried to connect with, carrying a childhood that crushed him, and a present that refuses to see him as anything other than the child of the man who started the war. The episode's darkness is structural. It is not a single moment, but a pattern of rejection and isolation and misunderstanding that the show traces from Zuko's earliest childhood to his current position as the most alone person in the entire series. And the pattern is so thorough, so airtight, so perfectly constructed that by the end of the episode you understand, viscerally, why Zuko is who he is, why he is angry, why he is lost, why he makes terrible decisions. Because the world has been making terrible decisions about him since the day he was born. And the decisions accumulated, and the accumulation became his life. The Crossroads of Destiny is the final episode of Book 2. It aired on December 1st, 2006. And it contains the single darkest image in the entire series. Not a skeleton, not a cage, not a scar. A bolt of lightning entering the back of a 12-year-old boy, and the boy falling. Aang enters the Avatar state during the battle beneath Ba Sing Se. He rises into the air, the glow fills his eyes and his tattoos. He is ascending, becoming something beyond human, reaching toward the full power of 1,000 lifetimes. And Azula, from behind, shoots him with lightning. The bolt hits Aang in the back, in the spine. The glow dies. Aang's body goes rigid and then limp. He falls. The camera follows him down, and the fall seems to last longer than gravity should allow, because the show wants you to feel every foot of the descent. The Avatar, the bridge between the human world and the spirit world, the reincarnated protector of balance, is falling, and no one is catching him, and for a brief terrible moment, you believe he is dead. Katara catches him. She cradles him, and the shot of Katara holding Aang's body, his lifeless body, is the image that children carried home from this episode. It is a pieta. It is the image of loss made visible, rendered in the bright colors of a Nickelodeon cartoon, broadcast to an audience that was not prepared for it. The show ends its second season on this image. Not a victory, not a cliffhanger in the traditional sense, where the outcome is uncertain but hopeful. A defeat. A total, unambiguous defeat. Ba Sing Se has fallen. The Earth Kingdom has fallen. Azula has won. Aang is dead or dying. And the final shot is Aang lying on Appa's back, unconscious, while Katara uses the spirit water from the North Pole to try to bring him back. And the camera pulls back, and the group flies away from the fallen city, and the season ends, and the screen goes dark. Children waited 9 months for the next season. 9 months of not knowing whether Aang survived. 9 months of carrying that image. The boy falling, the lightning in his back, the glow dying in his eyes. The show did this deliberately. It did not soften the cliffhanger with a hint or a reassurance or a post-credit scene that let you know everything would be okay. It left you in the dark. It trusted you to survive the dark. And the darkness, the 9 months of darkness between seasons, became part of the experience, part of the story, part of what it felt like to watch this show in real time, and to understand that the show was not going to protect you from the consequences of its own narrative. When Book 3 begins with The Awakening, which aired on September 21st, 2007, Aang wakes up. He is alive, but he is not the same. His hair has grown. He has a scar on his back where the lightning entered, and the scar is a permanent reminder that the Avatar can die, that the show's protagonist is mortal, that the power and the legacy and the cosmic responsibility do not protect him from a bolt of electricity aimed at his spine by a 14-year-old girl who was faster than he was. The scar on Aang's back mirrors the scar on Zuko's face. Both scars were made by the Fire Nation. Both scars mark their recipients as survivors of something that should have killed them. Both scars are visible in every subsequent episode, silent reminders of the darkest thing that happened to each character. And the show's decision to give both its hero and its reformed villain permanent, visible damage is one of its bravest choices. In most children's shows, damage is temporary. Bruises heal between episodes. The consequences of violence are contained within the episode in which they occur. Avatar refuses this convention. It insists that damage is real, that damage lasts, that the body keeps the score. The Puppet Master aired on November 9th, 2007, Book 3, Episode 8. It is the closest Avatar comes to being a horror show, and it earns the comparison honestly. The episode opens with Team Avatar sitting around a campfire, telling scary stories. This is a familiar framing device, warm and communal and safe. The kind of scene that usually leads to something lighthearted. The show uses the familiarity against you. It lulls you. It lets you settle into the warmth. And then it introduces Hama, and the warmth drains out of the episode like water from a cracked vessel. Hama is an old woman from the Southern Water Tribe. She lives alone in a Fire Nation village. She is kind to Team Avatar. She cooks for them. She tells them stories about the old days. She teaches Katara waterbending techniques that Katara has never learned. And each of these acts of kindness is, in retrospect, a manipulation. Each one is designed to build trust, to create intimacy, to make Katara feel connected to Hama before Hama reveals what she really wants. Hama wants a successor. She has developed a technique, bloodbending, that allows her to control the bodies of other living beings by manipulating the water in their blood. The technique only works during the full moon, when a waterbender's power is at its peak, and Hama has been using it to kidnap Fire Nation villagers and imprison them inside a mountain. The scene where Hama reveals bloodbending to Katara is the scene that changed what people thought a Nickelodeon show could do. The full moon rises, Hama demonstrates. She moves her hands, and a person moves against their will, their body jerking and twisting like a marionette, their face frozen in an expression of confusion and horror. The person does not understand what is happening. They cannot control their own limbs. They are a puppet, and Hama is the master, and the strings are invisible because the strings are inside the body. Katara is horrified. She refuses to learn. She says it is a violation. She says it is wrong. And Hama forces the choice. Hama attacks Sokka and Aang, using bloodbending to turn them against each other. Their bodies fight while their minds scream. And Katara, to save them, to stop Hama, uses bloodbending herself. She bends the blood inside an old woman's body and forces that body to the ground and holds it there until the fight is over. Katara wins, but the shot that ends the episode is not a victory shot. It is Katara standing in the moonlight crying, and behind her, being led away, Hama is laughing because Hama got what she wanted. The technique has been passed on. The knowledge is inside Katara now. It will always be inside Katara, and there is no way to unlearn it. This is the episode's darkness, not the body horror, not the puppetry, not the kidnapping or the mountain prison, or the full moon, or any of the trappings of the genre. The darkness is the corruption. The knowledge that doing the right thing sometimes requires doing a terrible thing. That saving your friends sometimes means crossing a line that you cannot uncross. That the line exists inside you, not in the world. And once you know where it is, once you have crossed it, the geography of your moral landscape changes permanently. Katara carries bloodbending for the rest of the series. She uses it once more in the Southern Raiders against a man she believes killed her mother. And that second use is, if anything, darker than the first, because the first was involuntary, forced by circumstance, a reaction to an impossible situation. The second is a choice. Katara chooses to bend a man's blood. She chooses to violate his autonomy. She chooses to use against him the same power that Hama used against innocent villagers. And even though the man deserves it, even though the man killed her mother, even though the rage behind the choice is entirely justified, the choice itself is a darkness that Katara will carry forever. The Southern Raiders is the episode that shows you what revenge looks like when it happens to a good person. Book 3, Episode 16. July 17th, 2008. Katara finally confronts Yon-Ra, the man who killed her mother. The flashback is precise. Katara is 8 years old. She runs into her mother's tent during a Fire Nation raid. A man is standing over her mother. The man asks where the last waterbender of the Southern Water Tribe is. Kia, Katara's mother, says she is the last waterbender. She lies. She lies to protect Katara, and the lie costs Kia her life. The show does not show the killing. It does not need to. The cut from the tent to young Katara running through the snow, screaming for her father, tells you everything. And the cut is worse than any violence could be, because the cut is the boundary between a world where Katara had a mother and a world where she does not. And the boundary is instantaneous. And the speed of it, the brutality of it, the irrevocability of it, is the whole point. Katara spends the rest of the series carrying this. She carries the image of her mother's face. She carries the guilt of being the waterbender Kaya died to protect. She carries the knowledge that her mother's sacrifice was an act of love so total that it cost everything. And she carries the rage, the deep and patient and carefully controlled rage that the show does not let you see until this episode, when Zuko offers her the chance to find the man who did it. The journey is not heroic. It is not cathartic. It is not the satisfying revenge narrative that most shows would construct from this premise. Katara finds Yon-Ra. She confronts him. She uses bloodbending to stop him in his tracks. She is inches from killing him, and then she stops. She lets him go, not because she forgives him. She is very clear about this. She does not forgive him. She lets him go because killing him would not bring her mother back. Because revenge, at the moment of its completion, reveals itself as empty. Because the thing she wanted was not his death, but her mother's life. And his death cannot give her that. The episode ends with Katara forgiving Zuko for his past actions. She hugs him. It is a quiet, small moment after the enormity of what preceded it. And the show's argument, embedded in the structure of the episode, is that forgiveness is not about the person who wronged you. Forgiveness is about what you choose to carry. Katara chooses to put down the rage she has been carrying for years. She does not put down the grief. The grief stays, the grief will always stay. But the rage, the corrosive, consuming, destroying rage that was eating her from the inside, she puts that down. And the putting down is not forgiveness of Yanra, it is mercy toward herself. The Agni Kai between Zuko and Azula in the series finale is the most visually stunning sequence in Avatar, and also its most emotionally devastating. It aired on July 19, 2008, as part of the 4-part Sozin's Comet series finale, and it begins with a choice that should not have been possible. Zuko challenges Azula to an Agni Kai, a one-on-one duel for the throne. The comet blazes overhead, amplifying every firebender's power 100-fold. And Zuko is confident. He tells Katara that something is off about Azula, that she is not fighting at full capacity, that the Agni Kai is a fight he can win. He is right. Azula is not at full capacity. Azula has been unraveling for episodes, losing control, firing her closest allies, hallucinating conversations with her mother. The girl who conquered Ba Sing Se with 2 companions and a strategy is gone. In her place is someone fragmented, someone whose edges are jagged, someone whose fire, which was always blue and precise and controlled, is now erratic, massive, beautiful, and wild. The animators made a choice for this fight that changes everything about how it lands. They removed the combat sounds, no punching, no explosions, no crackling fire. Instead, they laid a single piece of music over the fight, a mournful, aching score that tells you what the fight means. You are not watching a victory, you are watching a tragedy. 2 siblings, both damaged by the same father, both shaped by the same broken family, fighting to the death on the grounds of a palace that raised them both and loved neither of them. Zuko bends fire. Azula bends fire. The blasts are enormous, comet-enhanced, filling the screen with orange and blue, and the scale of the power is breathtaking. And the music is sad, and the sadness overwhelms the spectacle. Because you know what you are watching. You are watching a brother fight his sister. A brother who was burned by his father fighting a sister who was weaponized by the same father. A brother who found love fighting a sister who never did. And the fight is not about the throne. The throne is a pretext. The fight is about everything the Fire Nation royal family did to its children. And the children are still paying for it. And the payment is this: a duel in the shadow of a comet, surrounded by the ruins of a civilization that valued power over love. Azula targets Katara with lightning. Zuko jumps in front of it. The lightning hits him, and Zuko, who learned from Iroh how to redirect lightning, absorbs the blast and redirects it into the sky, but the angle is wrong, the position is wrong, and some of the lightning passes through his body and he collapses. Katara defeats Azula. She does not defeat her with waterbending. She defeats her with a trick, chaining Azula to a grating over a drain, and freezing them both in ice, and then unfreezing herself and leaving Azula chained and struggling. And the final shot of Azula is the shot that haunts you. She is chained, she is screaming, she is breathing fire that goes nowhere, she is crying, and the camera holds on her face, and her face is the face of a child, and the child is broken, and the breaking happened long before this fight. Long before the comet, long before the betrayal of Mai and Ty Lee, in a room in a palace where a father looked at his daughter and saw not a child but a weapon. The show does not rescue Azula. It does not offer her redemption. It does not give her a moment of clarity or a reconciliation, or a hand reaching out. It leaves her chained and screaming, and the leaving is the darkest choice the show makes, because the leaving says something about the limits of storytelling. Some damage cannot be repaired in the time allotted. Some darkness cannot be resolved in 61 episodes. Some children, destroyed by the people who were supposed to love them, cannot be saved by the narrative that described their destruction. Azula is left behind, and the leaving is not a failure of the story, it is the story's most honest moment. The show's treatment of the air nomad genocide is its most sustained act of darkness, because it is not contained in a single episode. It is a presence, a weight that sits on every frame of the series, from the first episode to the last, invisible and enormous, like gravity. The genocide happened before the show begins. It happened 100 years before the show begins. And the show never shows it. You never see the Fire Nation army descending on the temples. You never see the monks fighting or fleeing or dying. You never see the children. The show gives you the aftermath, the ruins, the skeletons, the empty sky, and it trusts you to reconstruct the event from the evidence. This is a deliberate choice. And it is the right choice because showing the genocide would have made it comprehensible. It would have given you images to process, sequences to follow, a narrative to understand. By not showing it, the show makes the genocide incomprehensible. It makes it an absence, a hole in the world where a civilization used to be. And the hole is worse than the images would have been, because the hole has no edges, no boundaries, no limits. The genocide is as large as your ability to imagine it, and your ability to imagine it is larger than any animation could convey. Aang encounters the genocide in pieces. The Southern Air Temple, the Northern Air Temple occupied by refugees, the Eastern Air Temple abandoned. Each encounter is another piece of evidence, another fragment of a picture that can never be completed. And each encounter reopens the wound, because the wound is not a single event that happened and ended. The wound is ongoing. Every time Aang sees an empty temple, every time he meets someone who has never seen an airbender, every time he bends air and is reminded that he is the only one who can, the genocide happens again. Not historically, personally, in his body, in his heart, in the space between what he remembers and what exists. The show's most devastating statement about the genocide is not a scene, it is a fact. The fact that Aang is the last airbender, the title of the show, is the darkest thing about it. Every time you read it, every time you hear it, you are reading and hearing a statement about the annihilation of an entire people, the last airbender. Not one of the airbenders, not a remarkable airbender. The last. The only. The final. The word carries the weight of every airbender who is not there. Every temple that is empty, every tradition that is broken. Every child who was never born because their parents were killed before they could become parents. Aang is 12 years old and he is carrying an extinction event on his shoulders. This is the premise of the show. Not the Avatar's duty to bring balance, not the hero's journey from boy to savior. The premise is that a child is the sole surviving member of a genocide, and the child must save the world that killed his people. The irony of this premise is bottomless. The world needs the Avatar. The Avatar was an air nomad. The world killed the air nomads. The world killed the Avatar's people and now needs the Avatar to save it. And Aang does it. He saves the world. He saves the world that murdered everyone he loved. This is either the most forgiving act in the history of fiction or the most painful. And the show does not ask you to choose between these readings. It holds them both simultaneously and lets the tension between them generate the emotional energy that powers the entire narrative. The genocide echoes through specific characters in ways the show handles with extraordinary care. Aang's response is grief that calcifies into purpose. He does not seek revenge. He does not rage against the Fire Nation the way Katara rages against Yun Ra. He converts the grief into mission. He is going to save the world because saving the world is what the Avatar does. And being the Avatar is the only identity he has left, because his other identity, air nomad monk student of Gyatso, was taken from him. The mission is all that remains. But the grief surfaces. It surfaces in the Southern Air Temple, in the Avatar state. It surfaces in the desert, in the rage. It surfaces in quiet moments throughout the series. Moments where Aang talks about the monks or demonstrates an airbending technique or remembers something from before. And you can see, in the slight pause before he speaks, in the careful way he holds the memory, that the memory is both precious and poisonous. Precious because it is all he has, poisonous because it reminds him of everything he lost. The show extends the genocide's darkness to characters who were not there. Zuko visits the Southern Air Temple in Book 3, and the sight of the ruins affects him. He stands in the place where the massacre happened, surrounded by the evidence of what his ancestors did, and the standing is its own kind of reckoning. Zuko did not order the genocide. Zuko was not alive when it happened, but the genocide was committed by his nation, by his bloodline, by the ideology that shaped his childhood. And the connection between Zuko and the empty temple is a connection he cannot deny and did not choose. He inherited the guilt the way he inherited the throne. Both were given to him by a family that did not ask his permission. The Fire Nation school episode The Headband reveals the genocide's most insidious legacy. The children in the school have never heard of the air nomads. The curriculum has erased them. The genocide is not just physical, it is cultural. The Fire Nation did not just kill the airbenders. It killed the memory of the airbenders. It removed them from history. It created a world in which an entire civilization never existed, and the children growing up in that world have no way of knowing what was taken from them, because the thing that was taken has been removed so completely that there is no gap to notice. This is the genocide's final darkness, not the killing, the forgetting, the systematic, institutional, deliberate forgetting that transforms an atrocity into an absence and an absence into normality. The Fire Nation children are not guilty. They are ignorant, and the ignorance is manufactured. And the manufacturing is the last stage of the genocide, the stage where the perpetrators erase not just the victims, but the crime itself, so that the world moves forward as if nothing happened, as if the sky was always empty, as if the temples were always ruins, as if the silence at the top of the mountain was natural rather than engineered. Aang disrupts this forgetting. His existence is the disruption. Every time he bends air in front of someone who has never seen airbending, he is undoing a small piece of the erasure. Every time he tells someone about the monks, about the temples, about the way of life that was destroyed, he is restoring a small piece of the memory. He is a walking memorial, a living monument to the dead. And the weight of this, the weight of being the only proof that your people existed, is a darkness that the show carries quietly, beneath the adventures and the humor and the romance, from the first episode to the last. There is a moment in the finale, during Aang's fight with Ozai, where Aang enters the Avatar state and speaks with the voice of 1,000 lifetimes. The voice is collective. It is all the avatars who came before, speaking through Aang, declaring their judgment on the Fire Lord. And among those voices are the voices of air nomad avatars, Yangchen, others whose names were never recorded. They are there, in Aang's body, in his voice, in the power that flows through him. The dead are not gone. The dead are inside him. The dead are speaking through him. And their speech is the opposite of the forgetting. It is a remembering so complete that it collapses the distance between past and present and makes the dead as real as the living. This is the show's response to the genocide, not vengeance, not justice in the punitive sense, remembering. The act of keeping the dead alive in the memory of the living. The act of refusing to let the forgetting win. The act of carrying the names and the traditions and the ways of life that were destroyed and transmitting them forward across the gap of 100 years into a future where they might take root again. It is a dark response because it acknowledges that the dead are dead and cannot be brought back. It is a hopeful response because it insists that the dead are not erased if someone remembers them. And it is an honest response because it does not pretend that remembering is easy or sufficient or free of pain. Remembering the air nomads is the hardest thing Aang does, harder than mastering the elements, harder than fighting the Fire Lord, harder than making the choice not to kill, because remembering means living with the loss, every day, every moment. For the rest of his life, the show never resolves this. It never heals the wound. It never restores the air nomads or repopulates the temples or undoes the genocide. It ends with Aang alive and the war over and balance restored. But the temples are still empty. The sky is still silent. Aang is still the last. And the darkness of that fact, the irresolvable darkness of a genocide that cannot be undone, is the thing the show carries all the way to its final frame and sets down, gently, in front of you, and trusts you to carry from here. Lake Laogai is where the show's darkness becomes institutional. It is no longer about individuals. It is no longer about fathers who burn, or generals who kill, or prodigies who conquer. Lake Laogai is about what happens when a government decides that truth is a threat, and that the appropriate response to a threat is to erase it. The Dai Li operate beneath the surface of Ba Sing Se, literally beneath. Their headquarters is under the lake, in tunnels that officially do not exist, maintained by agents who officially do not operate, serving a purpose that is officially not necessary. The layers of denial are staggering. The Dai Li deny the war. They deny the existence of the Dai Li. They deny the denial. The denial goes so deep that it ceases to be a policy. It becomes the way Ba Sing Se knows things. It becomes the structure of knowledge itself, shaped and maintained by men in green robes who decided that the greatest city in the Earth Kingdom would be safer if its citizens did not know they were in danger. The brainwashing is the mechanism. The Dai Li take people who ask inconvenient questions and bring them beneath the lake and sit them in a chair and swing a lantern back and forth. A green lantern that catches the light and throws it in rhythmic patterns. And they tell the person things. There is no war in Ba Sing Se. There is no war in Ba Sing Se. They say it until the person believes it. Until the person cannot remember believing anything else. Until the truth that the person walked in with has been replaced by a different truth. A manufactured truth. A truth that serves the interests of the man behind the curtain. The show gives you Judy as the human face of this process. She smiles. She always smiles. The smile is not a choice. The smile is a program. She was a person once. A person with her own name and her own memories and her own understanding of what was true. And then she was taken beneath the lake and the lantern swung back and forth and the voice said the words and the person she was disappeared and Judy took her place. A greeter, a guide, a smiling, compliant, endlessly helpful woman who does not know that she is a product of systematic psychological torture. And then the show reveals that there are multiple Judis. The name is a function, not a person. When one Judi malfunctions, when the programming shows cracks, she is replaced by another. And the replacement is seamless. The smile is the same, the words are the same. The Judees are interchangeable because their individuality has been removed. They are tools, human tools, people who were hollowed out and filled with a purpose that serves a government that does not deserve their service. This is the darkest version of the show's recurring concern with control. Ozai controls through violence. Azula controls through fear. Long Feng controls through information. And the Dai Li, Long Feng's instruments, control through the most intimate mechanism imaginable. They control thought. They control memory. They reach inside the mind, the most private space a person possesses. And they rearrange the furniture. They take the things you know and replace them with things you should know, according to the standards of people who have decided that they know better than you what you should think. Jet encounters this machinery firsthand. He is captured by the Dai Li and subjected to the brainwashing process. When Team Avatar finds him, he is different. He smiles. He is calm. He says the words. There is no war in Ba Sing Se, and the Jet, who was a freedom fighter, who was angry and passionate and reckless and alive, is gone, replaced by someone placid, compliant, empty. The process of breaking the brainwashing is painful. Aang and the others try to reach Jet, to remind him of who he was, to pull the real Jet out from underneath the programming. And it works, partially. Jet begins to remember. The memories surface in fragments, in flashes, in moments of clarity that cut through the manufactured calm. But the recovery is incomplete. The damage is not fully reversible, and Jet dies before the show can tell you whether the real Jet, the original Jet, would have come all the way back. Jet's death is the show's most contested moment. The scene is deliberately ambiguous. Long Feng strikes Jet during the confrontation beneath the lake. Jet falls. He tells Team Avatar to go. Smellerbee says they will not leave without him. Toph says that he is lying, that he will not be okay. And the show cuts away. It does not show you what happens next. It does not tell you whether Jet dies. It simply moves on, the way the show moves on from many of its darkest moments, without resolution, without closure, without the comfort of knowing how the story ends. The creators confirmed after the series that Jet dies in that scene, but the confirmation came in an interview, not in the show. Inside the narrative, Jet's death exists in the same space as Gyatso's death. In the gap, in the silence, in the space between what the show shows you and what the show trusts you to understand without being shown. This is the pattern, the recurring structural choice that defines Avatar's relationship with darkness. The show does not show you the worst things. It shows you the moments before and the moments after, and trusts you to fill in the space between. The moment before Kia's death, the moment after Aang finds Gyatso, the moment before Jet stops breathing, the moment after Azula's lightning hits Aang's back. The show occupies the threshold between the dark and the darkest, and it stays there, on the threshold, letting you look into the room without pushing you inside. This is not evasion. It is not cowardice. It is not the show being afraid to go all the way. It is a technique, a narrative technique that is older than television, older than film, older than the novel. The technique of the implied, the shown but not shown, the darkness that is most powerful when it exists in the imagination of the audience rather than on the screen. Your imagination is darker than anything the show could animate. Your imagination, fed by the evidence the show provides, the skeleton, the scar, the empty temple, the falling boy, creates images that no animation studio could match. And the show knows this. The show exploits this. The show gives you just enough to activate your imagination and then steps back and lets your imagination do the work. And the work your imagination does is more devastating than any explicit depiction could be. This is why Avatar's darkest moments linger. They linger because they are not complete. They are open-ended. They are invitations to imagine, and the imagining never stops because the show never provides the closure that would let the imagining rest. Gyatso is still dying in that room. Kaya is still in that tent. Jet is still lying on the floor beneath the lake. Azula is still chained to the grating, screaming. These moments do not end. They echo. They reverberate through the rest of the series, and through the years after the series, and through the dark rooms where you lie awake remembering them. The show's darkness is a gift. This sounds wrong. This sounds like a justification or a rationalization, an attempt to make something painful sound positive. But it is true. The darkness is a gift because the darkness is honest. Because the darkness tells you the truth about the world, which is that the world contains suffering, and the suffering is not always resolved, and the resolution, when it comes, is not always clean. And the people who suffer are not always saved, and the people who cause the suffering are not always punished, and the distance between the two is not a moral category but a circumstance, a roll of the dice, a placement in time and space that determines whether you are the one holding the fire or the one being burned. Avatar tells children this truth. It tells them through the language they understand, through color and movement and music and character. It tells them through Aang's grief and Katara's rage and Zuko's scar and Azula's scream. It tells them through a sky bison in a cage and an old man singing under a tree and a boy falling from the sky with lightning in his back. It tells them that the world is dark, and the darkness is survivable, and the survival is not a victory but a beginning, and the beginning is enough. The Agni Kai between Ozai and Zuko is never shown in its entirety. You see fragments, flashbacks, pieces of a scene that the show assembles over multiple episodes, giving you one new piece each time, building the image of the worst thing that ever happened to Zuko in the same way you build a puzzle, except this puzzle, when completed, shows you a father burning his 13-year-old son's face. The fragments are distributed across the series with surgical precision. In Book 1, you learn that Zuko has a scar and that his father gave it to him. The information is delivered casually, almost as an aside, and the casualness is part of the horror. Zuko mentions it the way you might mention a fact about the weather. It happened. It is part of the world. The show does not yet tell you how or why or what the moment felt like. In The Storm, Book 1, Episode 12, which aired on June 3, 2005, the full story begins to emerge. Zuko attended a war meeting. He spoke out of turn. He objected to a general's plan to sacrifice an entire division of new recruits as a diversion. The objection was compassionate. It was the right thing to do. A 13-year-old boy stood up in a room full of generals and said that you cannot sacrifice your own soldiers. And the generals looked at him, and his father looked at him, and the looking was worse than any words. Ozai declared that Zuko had disrespected him by speaking in his war room. He demanded an Agni Kai, and Zuko agreed, believing he would fight the general whose plan he had challenged. Instead, when Zuko entered the arena, his opponent was Ozai, his father, the Fire Lord, the most powerful firebender in the nation. Zuko would not fight. He fell to his knees. He begged. He said he was sorry. He said he only had the best interests of the Fire Nation at heart. He said he would never speak out of turn again. He said, please. Ozai burned him anyway. The show cuts away from the actual burning. You hear Zuko scream. You see the flash of fire reflected on the faces of the audience. You see Iroh in the stands, turning away, unable to watch. And then the episode moves on, and Zuko has a scar. And the scar is permanent, and the episode never returns to the arena. The cutaway is the darkest choice in the entire series, because the cutaway does not protect Zuko. It does not soften the blow. It protects you. The show decides that showing you the actual moment of burning, the fire touching the boy's face, the skin changing, the scream becoming something animal and inhuman, would be too much. Not too much for the narrative, too much for you. The show draws the line at the moment of impact and trusts you to know what happens on the other side of the line without needing to see it. And you do know. You know because the evidence is on Zuko's face for the rest of the series. You know because the scar is there in every episode, in every scene, in every close-up. You know because the show makes the consequence permanent and visible and undeniable. Other shows would have healed the scar. Other shows would have found a way to undo the damage, to restore the face, to erase the evidence. Avatar refuses. The scar stays. The scar is the show's argument that some things cannot be undone, that actions have consequences, that a father who burns his son's face has done something that no amount of character development or narrative resolution can repair. Zuko touches his scar throughout the series. He touches it when he is uncertain. He touches it when he is afraid. He touches it when he is making decisions that he knows are wrong and cannot stop himself from making. The touching is a habit, a reflex, a nervous tick that reveals everything you need to know about Zuko's inner life. Without a single word of dialogue, he is touching the place where his father hurt him. He is touching the proof that the person who was supposed to love him chose to harm him instead. And the touching says, in the language of the body, what Zuko cannot say in the language of words. I was hurt. I was hurt by the person who should have protected me. And the hurt is still here. The hurt is always here. The show extends the darkness of Zuko's scar beyond Zuko himself. When Zuko joins Team Avatar in Book 3, the other characters react to his scar. They have seen it before, from a distance, when Zuko was the enemy. But up close, as a companion, the scar is different. It is a permanent reminder of what the Fire Nation does to its own children. It is evidence of the system they are fighting, made visible on the face of a boy who is now their ally. And the reaction shots, brief and often wordless, tell you that the other characters understand what the scar means. They understand that the boy standing next to them was hurt in a way that cannot be fixed, and the understanding changes the way they treat him. Iroh's response to the scar is the most complex. Iroh was there. Iroh was in the audience when Ozai burned Zuko. Iroh watched. And Iroh's guilt about watching, about being present and failing to intervene, about standing in the stands and turning away instead of standing up and stopping it, is a guilt that the show never lets Iroh articulate, but that you can read in every interaction between Iroh and Zuko for the rest of the series. Every cup of tea Iroh makes for Zuko is an apology. Every proverb is a lesson Iroh wishes he had taught before the burning. Every moment of patience, every expression of love, every refusal to give up on Zuko even when Zuko is at his worst, is Iroh trying to repair what he failed to prevent. The tea is not tea. The tea is, I am sorry I did not save you. The proverbs are not wisdom. The proverbs are, I will not fail you again. And the love, the enormous, unconditional, stubborn, persistent love that Iroh pours into Zuko across 3 seasons, is the love of a man who knows that love alone cannot undo what was done, but who offers it anyway because it is all he has. The scar scene's darkness extends beyond the characters to the audience, to you. Because the scar confronts you with a question that the show never asks directly, but that sits beneath every episode like bedrock. What would you have done? If you were in the stands, if you were watching a man burn a boy, would you have turned away like Iroh? Would you have watched like the generals? Would you have stood up? Would you have done anything? The show does not answer this question because the answer is uncomfortable. The answer, for most people, is that they would have done what Iroh did. They would have turned away, not because they wanted the boy to be hurt, because the system was too powerful, because the Fire Lord was too dangerous, because standing up would have cost them their position, their safety, possibly their life, and the recognition that you would have turned away, that you, a good person, a person who cares about children, a person who is lying in the dark right now feeling compassion for a fictional boy, would have turned away if the cost of turning toward was high enough. This recognition is the darkest thing the show gives you. Not the scar, not the scream, not the fire, the mirror. The show holds up a mirror and shows you yourself. And the image in the mirror is a person who would have turned away. And the image is honest. And the honesty is devastating. There are smaller darknesses scattered throughout the series, like seeds. Moments that last only seconds but that stay with you for years. The moment in the Siege of the North when the sky turns red because the moon spirit has been killed, and every waterbender in the Northern Water Tribe loses their bending simultaneously. The moment in The Blind Bandit when Toph's parents, learning that their daughter has been fighting in an underground arena, respond not with curiosity or pride, but with fear, and the fear becomes a tighter cage than any arena. The moment in The Boiling Rock when Mai betrays Azula to save Zuko, and Azula's face in that moment, the shock, the disbelief, the sudden and total collapse of her assumption that fear is sufficient, tells you that Azula has never been betrayed before, because no one has ever cared about someone else enough to risk Azula's wrath. The moment in Sozin's Comet when Aang, on the verge of losing the fight with Ozai, is impaled on a rock and the impact hits the exact spot where Azula's lightning entered his back, and the impact triggers the Avatar state. And for a moment, the show lets you think that this is a triumph, that the Avatar state will save Aang, before it reveals that the Avatar state is not under Aang's control, and that the power is using Aang as much as Aang is using the power. And the distinction between savior and weapon disappears entirely. The moment in the Avatar and the Fire Lord when you learn that Sozin let Roku die, that Sozin stood on the edge of the volcano and watched his best friend, the Avatar, being consumed by lava and toxic gas, and made the decision not to help. The moment is shown from Zozin's perspective, and his expression is not villainous. It is calculating. He is weighing the value of Roku's life against the value of his ambition. And the ambition wins, and the winning is quiet. And the quietness is what makes it monstrous. The moment in The Waterbending Master when Pakku refuses to teach Katara because she is a girl, and the refusal is presented not as the bigotry of an individual, but as the law of a culture, and the law is enforced by everyone around Pakku, and the enforcement is polite, and the politeness of the enforcement is the thing that makes it cruel. The moment in Imprisoned when Haru's father has been captive for years in an offshore metal prison where earthbenders are denied contact with Earth, the one element that defines their identity, and the denial is systematic, institutional, calculated to break them not through violence but through deprivation, through the slow removal of the thing that makes them who they are. Each of these moments is small, each lasts only seconds, and each one contains a darkness that the show deposits in you and never retrieves. The show trusts you to carry these darknesses. It trusts you to hold them alongside the light, the humor, the friendship, the love, the flying bison, the penguin sledding, the cabbage merchant, the turtle duck pond. The show trusts you to hold all of it, the dark and the light, without dropping either, without pretending that one negates the other. without simplifying the world into a place where only good things happen or only bad things happen. The world of Avatar contains both. The world of Avatar is honest about both, and the honesty, the refusal to look away, the insistence on showing you the dark alongside the light, the grief alongside the joy, the scar alongside the smile, is what makes Avatar the show it is. Not a children's show, not an adult show, a complete, uncompromising, compassionate, brutal, honest show that respects its audience enough to tell them the truth about the world and trust them to do something useful with it. The truth is that the world is dark. The truth is that the darkness is survivable. The truth is that surviving the darkness is not the same as defeating it, and defeating it is not the same as erasing it, and erasing it is not possible, because darkness is not a thing that can be removed. Darkness is a condition, a permanent condition of being alive in a world where suffering exists. And the question is not whether you can escape the darkness. The question is what you do while you are inside it. Aang grieves, Katara rages, Zuko endures, Iroh sings, Toph punches through it, Sokka laughs at it. Each character has a different relationship with the dark, and the show values all of these relationships equally. None of them is presented as the correct response. None of them is held up as the model for how you should handle your own darkness. The show simply shows you the options and trusts you to find the one that fits. You are in the dark right now. Not the dark of the show. You're dark. The dark that you carry, whatever it is, whatever shape it takes, whatever name it has or does not have. And you are lying here, in the literal dark, listening to someone talk about the darkness of a cartoon, and the talking is doing something. It is doing the thing that stories have always done. It is giving shape to the shapeless. It is giving language to the languageless. It is taking the darkness that lives inside you and showing you that the same darkness lives inside other people, inside fictional people, inside a 12-year-old boy with arrow tattoos who lost everyone he loved and saved the world anyway. You are not Aang. You do not have the Avatar state. You do not have a sky bison or a group of friends who will walk into a storm to hold your hand. But you have this. You have the dark room and the quiet voice in the story that says, the darkness is real, and you are not alone in it. And the being not alone is not a solution, but it is a start. The show's treatment of Azula's breakdown is its most psychologically dark, sustained narrative. It unfolds across the final episodes of Book 3, and it is structured as a collapse, the kind of collapse that you watch with the knowledge that it was always coming, and the horror of watching it arrive. Azula has been the show's most controlled character from the moment she appeared. Her fire is blue because blue fire burns hotter, her strategies are layered and precise. Her emotional composure is absolute. She does not panic. She does not improvise. She is, in the language of psychology, hypervigilant. She monitors every situation, every relationship, every variable, because she learned early that the alternative to monitoring is vulnerability, and vulnerability in Ozai's household is punished. The cracks begin at the Boiling Rock. Mai and Ty Lee, the two people closest to Azula, betray her, not because they are disloyal, because they love someone more than they fear Azula. Mai loves Zuko, Ty Lee loves Mai. And the love, the simple human love between friends and between a girl and a boy, is stronger than the fear that Azula spent years cultivating. And when Azula realizes this, when she sees Mai step between her and Zuko, when she sees Ty Lee strike her to protect Mai, something fundamental in Azula's understanding of the world breaks. She has believed her entire life that fear is sufficient, that if you are powerful enough, if you are frightening enough, people will obey. This belief is the foundation of her identity. It is the thing she learned from her father. It is the thing she practiced every day. And the Boiling Rock proves it wrong. The Boiling Rock shows her that love, the thing she never learned, the thing she was never taught, the thing her father never modeled, is more powerful than fear. And the showing is not liberating, it is annihilating. Because if fear is not sufficient, then everything Azula has built, her power, her reputation, her control, is built on a foundation that does not hold. The collapse accelerates in the final episodes. Ozai names Azula Fire Lord, but the naming is hollow. It is a title without power. Ozai is taking the real power with him on the comet. He is leaving Azula behind with a crown and an empty throne and the implicit message that she is not important enough to bring along. And Azula, who has spent her entire life performing for her father's approval, who has conquered cities and defeated avatars and done everything Ozai ever asked, receives this message and understands it perfectly. She is not enough. She was never enough. The performance was perfect and it was not enough. She begins to unravel. She fires her servants. She banishes her advisors. She dismisses everyone around her because everyone around her is a potential betrayer. And the betrayal at the Boiling Rock has taught her that betrayal can come from anywhere, from anyone, from the people you trust most. The logic is impeccable. The logic is insane. If anyone can betray you, then no one can be trusted. If no one can be trusted, then everyone must go. And when everyone is gone, you are alone, and the alone is safe. Except, the alone is not safe because the alone is the thing that was killing you the whole time and you were too busy performing to notice. The mirror scene. Azula sits in front of a mirror preparing for her coronation. Her hair is uneven from where she cut it herself. Her makeup is smeared. Her eyes are wild. She is the most powerful person in the Fire Nation, and she is talking to her mother. Ursa appears in the mirror. Not the real Ursa. Azula's Ursa. The version of her mother that lives inside Azula's mind, the version that represents everything Azula believes about herself and is terrified, is true. The mirror Ursa says she loves Azula. She says Azula is not a monster. She says the things that Azula has needed to hear her entire life and has never heard. And Azula screams and shatters the mirror because the hearing is worse than the silence. The hearing at this moment, after the betrayals and the hollow crown and the loneliness, is unbearable. Because if her mother loves her, then Azula has spent her entire life performing for the wrong audience. If her mother loves her, then the fear was never necessary. If her mother loves her, then everything Azula sacrificed, her childhood, her friendships, her capacity for joy, her ability to connect with another human being, was sacrificed for nothing. The mirror shatters, Azula cries, and the crying is the darkest thing. Not the screaming, not the fire, not the madness. The crying. Because the crying is the child who was always there, underneath the blue fire and the strategy and the control, the child who wanted her mother to stay and her father to love her, and someone, anyone, to see her as a person instead of a weapon. The child surfaces in the crying. The child has been waiting for the entire series to be acknowledged, and the show acknowledges her now in the worst possible moment, when it is too late for the acknowledgement to help. This is what the show does with its darkest moments. It finds the child. It always finds the child. Beneath the villain, beneath the warrior, beneath the prodigy, beneath the weapon, there is a child. And the child is hurt. And the hurt is the source of everything that follows. The cruelty and the ambition and the fire and the ice. All of it flows from a child who was hurt and who was not helped, and who grew up carrying the hurt and converting it into behavior that the world calls evil, but that is, underneath, a survival strategy. A way of making the world less dangerous, a way of controlling the uncontrollable, a way of ensuring that the thing that hurt you cannot hurt you again, even if the ensuring requires you to become the thing that hurts. Azula became the thing that hurts. She became her father. She became the weapon that her father needed, and the mirror that her mother feared, and the friend that nobody could trust, and the sister that nobody could reach. She became all of these things because the alternative, being vulnerable, being open, being a child in a world that punishes children, was too dangerous. And the show's treatment of her breakdown is dark because it makes you understand the logic. It makes you see that Azula's choices, terrible as they are, make sense within the context that produced them. She is not irrational. She is hyper-rational. She is applying a perfectly logical strategy to a perfectly hostile environment. And the strategy worked. It worked for years. It worked through the conquest of Ba Sing Se and the defeat of the Avatar and the earning of her father's approval. The strategy only stops working when love enters the equation, because love was never in the equation, because Azula never learned to account for it. The Agni Kai is the last act. Azula, Fire Lord for less than a day, fights Zuko in the courtyard of the palace where they both grew up. The palace where they both were damaged. The palace that shaped them both into the people they are now, standing in the courtyard, bending fire at each other, while the comet blazes overhead, and the music weeps. Zuko does not hate Azula. You can see it in the way he fights. He is controlled. He is precise. He is not trying to destroy her. He is trying to stop her. And the difference between destroying and stopping is the difference between Ozai and Iroh, between the father who burned and the uncle who loved, and Zuko, who learned from both, chooses the uncle's way. Azula is chained to the grating. She screams. She cries. She breathes fire. And Zuko and Katara stand over her, and their faces are not triumphant. Their faces are sad, because they are not looking at a defeated enemy. They are looking at a girl who is 14 years old and who has lost everything and who is chained to a piece of metal in the courtyard of her own home, screaming for help that will not come, breathing fire that touches nothing, crying tears that no one will wipe. The show leaves her there, the camera pulls back, The courtyard is empty. The comet fades. And Azula is there, in the dark, alone. The way she was always alone, the way she made herself alone because alone was the only safe place, and the safe place turned out to be the most dangerous place of all. This is the darkest moment in Avatar. Not the genocide, not the death of Jet or the captivity of Appa or the murder of Kia. This, a girl, alone, chained, screaming into an empty courtyard, a child, destroyed by the people who were supposed to love her, left behind by the narrative that described her destruction, carrying a pain so total that the show cannot contain it, cannot resolve it, cannot heal it. A girl who deserved better. A girl who got what the world gave her, which was not better, which was worse, which was the worst, and who became what the worst makes people become. The show's honesty about Azula is its bravest act of darkness, because the show does not flinch. It does not look away. It shows you everything from the beach party to the mirror scene, from the flirtation she failed at to the coronation she did not earn, from the first crack at the boiling rock to the final scream in the courtyard. It shows you the whole arc, the complete trajectory of a child becoming a weapon, becoming a ruin. And it trusts you to hold all of it and to feel, at the end, not satisfaction but sorrow. Sorrow is the appropriate response to Azula, not hatred, not the triumphant feeling of a villain being defeated. Sorrow. The quiet, persistent, adult sorrow of recognizing that this child never had a chance, and that the world is full of children who never had a chance, and that the fullness is not an abstraction but a fact, a verifiable, countable, documentable fact that exists in every city, in every country, in every family, where the adults forgot that the children were watching. The children are always watching. This is what Avatar knows. This is the knowledge that makes it dark. The children are watching the parents and learning the lessons and absorbing the patterns and becoming slowly and invisibly and irrevocably the people the patterns produce. The children of the Fire Nation are watching Ozai and learning that power justifies cruelty. The children of Ba Sing Se are watching the Dai Li and learning that truth is negotiable. The children of the Water Tribes are watching the war consume their parents and learning that the world is a place where the people you love can be taken from you at any moment for reasons you cannot understand. And the children watching the show, the real children, the ones sitting in their living rooms on Saturday mornings, are learning too. They are learning that stories can be honest, that stories can show you the dark without pushing you into it, that stories can hold your hand while they show you the worst things the way Katara holds Aang's hand in the desert. And the holding is not a solution, but it is enough to keep you standing. You are still here. You have been here through the genocides and the burnings and the brainwashings and the breakdowns and the mirrors and the screams. You have been here through all of it, in the dark, listening, carrying what you have heard, and you are not broken. You are not damaged. You are doing the thing that the show asked its audience to do 20 years ago. You are looking at the darkness and not looking away. The show trusts you. It has trusted you from the first episode when it showed a 12-year-old boy finding a skeleton, and trusted you to handle it. It trusted you through every subsequent darkness, each one deeper than the last, each one testing the limits of what a story can say and what an audience can hear. And you have been worthy of the trust. You have held the darkness alongside the light. You have felt the grief and the rage and the sorrow and the compassion, all of it, without simplifying, without reducing, without turning away. There is a darkness in Avatar that does not belong to any single episode or any single character. It belongs to the structure of the world itself. The four nations are defined by their elements, and the elements are defined by bending, and bending is defined by a hierarchy that the show presents as natural, but that, if you look at it carefully, is deeply troubling. Not everyone can bend. This is a fact the show establishes early and rarely interrogates. In every nation, there are benders and non-benders. The benders can manipulate the fundamental forces of nature, the non-benders cannot. And the distribution of this ability is, as far as the show reveals, random. It is not earned. It is not chosen. It is not the result of training or discipline or moral character. It is a condition of birth. You are born a bender or you are born without bending, and the world treats you differently based on which category you fall into. The show does not dwell on this inequality, but the inequality is present in every episode, underneath the adventure. Like bedrock. The Earth Kingdom is ruled by Earthbenders. The Fire Nation is ruled by Firebenders. The Water Tribes are led by Waterbenders. The Air Nomads were all benders, every single one, and this universality made them unique, and also, perhaps, made the other nations view them with a particular kind of suspicion. In a world where power is defined by bending, a nation where everyone has power is either an inspiration or a threat, depending on who is looking. Sokka lives inside this inequality. He is a non-bender in a group of benders. His sister can manipulate water. His best friend can manipulate air, fire, water, and earth simultaneously. His blind companion can sense vibrations through the ground and bend metal. And Sokka has a boomerang. The show plays this for comedy, and the comedy works, but beneath the comedy is a real and uncomfortable truth. Sokka is less powerful than his friends. Sokka cannot do the things his friends can do. And in a world where the things your friends can do include levitating, creating walls of ice, and shooting fire from their fists, the gap between can and cannot is not minor. It is existential. Sokka compensates with intelligence, with strategy, with invention, with the kind of creativity that comes from knowing that you will never be the strongest person in the room and that your survival depends on being the smartest. And the show rewards this compensation. Sokka is essential. Sokka plans the invasions, solves the puzzles, finds the solutions that brute bending cannot provide. But the reward does not erase the inequality. It does not change the fact that Sokka lives in a world where some people are born with superpowers and some people are not, and the distribution is random, and the randomness is never questioned by anyone in the show except, occasionally, by Sokka himself, in moments so brief that they are easy to miss. The inequality becomes explicit in The Legend of Korra, Avatar's sequel series, where an entire movement, the Equalists, rises up against bending as a form of oppression. But the seeds of the equalist argument are present in Avatar itself. They are present every time a bender uses their power to dominate a non-bender. Every time a general's strategy relies on bending and treats non-benders as expendable infantry. Every time the world's political structure reflects the assumption that the people who can move mountains should be the ones who decide what gets moved. This is a structural darkness, not a dramatic one, not the kind that produces tears or gasps or moments of horror, the kind that sits beneath the story, silent and immovable, shaping everything above it without being seen. The show's world is beautiful and magical and wondrous, and it is also fundamentally unfair. It is unfair in the same way the real world is unfair, where the distribution of talent and opportunity and circumstance is random, and the randomness is treated as natural, and the natural is treated as just, and the just is treated as permanent, and the permanence is treated as the way things are supposed to be. And the way things are supposed to be is, if you look at it clearly, not a fact but a story told by the people who benefited from the randomness to the people who did not. Toph's darkness is different from the structural kind. Toph's darkness is the darkness of a cage built by love. Her parents love her. This is not in question. They love her deeply, protectively, completely. And the love is the problem, because Toph's parents see their daughter and they see a blind girl. They see fragility. They see vulnerability. They see a child who needs protection, who needs walls, who needs to be kept safe from a world that would hurt her. And they build the walls. They hire the guards, they restrict her movement, her choices, her contact with the outside world. They do all of this out of love, and the love becomes indistinguishable from imprisonment. Toph is the greatest earthbender in the world. She invented metal bending. She can sense the position and movement of every living being within 100 feet through the vibrations in the ground. She is, in terms of raw power and innovative technique, one of the most formidable benders in the history of the Avatar universe. And her parents do not know any of this. They do not know because they never asked. They never asked because they had already decided who Toph was. Small, blind, fragile, in need of protection. And the decision was made before Toph could speak, before she could demonstrate her abilities, before she could show them that the girl they were protecting did not need protection. The decision was made, and the walls went up, and Toph spent years inside walls that were built by people who loved her too much to let her be herself. The scene where Toph runs away from home is not presented as a triumphant escape. It is presented as a rupture, a breaking. Toph leaves behind parents who will not understand why she left, parents who will search for her, parents who will hire mercenaries to bring her back, parents who love her and whose love she is rejecting, not because the love is insufficient, but because the love has become a mechanism of control. The love and the control are fused so completely that Toph cannot accept one without accepting the other. And the accepting of both would mean remaining in the cage, and the cage, however gilded, however comfortable, however well-intentioned, is still a cage. This is a kind of darkness the show handles with remarkable maturity. It is the darkness of good intentions producing bad outcomes, the darkness of love that suffocates, the darkness of parents who mean well, and who, despite meaning well, damage their child by refusing to see her as she is. Not as they wish she were, not as they fear she is, as she is. A blind girl who can see through the earth, a small person who can move mountains, a fragile child who is the least fragile person in any room she enters. The show extends this darkness through Toph's behavior. Toph is tough. Toph is aggressive. Toph is blunt to the point of rudeness. And the show suggests, without ever stating it explicitly, that these qualities are not natural. They are reactive. They are the opposite of the cage. Toph's parents treated her like glass, so Toph became steel. Toph's parents spoke softly and wrapped her in cotton, so Toph speaks loudly and wraps herself in stone. The toughness is not strength. The toughness is a defense against the softness that her parents used as a weapon. And beneath the toughness, beneath the earth bending and the metal bending and the trash talk and the punching, there is a girl who misses her parents and does not know how to miss them without surrendering the freedom that missing them would cost. The show's darkest structural choice is its refusal to resolve Toph's relationship with her parents within the original series. Toph runs away, Toph joins Team Avatar. Toph saves the world, and Toph does all of this without reconciling with the people who raised her. The reconciliation does not happen because the show understands that some reconciliations are not possible within the time frame of a narrative. Some wounds take longer to heal than a season. Some conversations require decades of living before the participants are ready to have them. And the show's refusal to force the reconciliation, its willingness to leave Toph's family situation unresolved, is a darkness that respects the reality of broken families more than any tidy reunion scene could have. The darkness of the show extends to the Earth itself, to the physical world that the characters inhabit. The Siwang Desert is a wasteland. The foggy swamp is a haunted morass. The ocean where Zhao dies is black and cold and indifferent. The volcano where Roku dies is not malevolent, just geological, just doing what volcanoes do, and the doing killed the Avatar. The world of Avatar is beautiful, and it is also hostile. It does not care about the people who live on it. It erupts, it floods, it freezes, it burns. And the characters, for all their bending, for all their power, are small in relation to the world that contains them. They are small and temporary and mortal, and the world is large and permanent and indifferent. And the gap between the two is the space where all the darkness lives. The show understands this gap. The show understands that the darkest thing is not any single act of cruelty or violence or institutional evil. The darkest thing is the indifference of the world to the suffering of the people in it. The volcano does not hate Roku, the desert does not hate Team Avatar, the comet does not hate the air nomads. The natural world is simply there, doing what it does, and the people inside it must navigate it as best they can with the tools they have. And the tools, however powerful, are never powerful enough to make the world safe. Because the world was never supposed to be safe. The world was supposed to be what it is, large and beautiful and dangerous and indifferent and full of darkness that is not evil, but simply dark. The way the night is dark, the way the ocean is dark, the way the space between the stars is dark. And here you are, in the dark. The show's dark and you're dark and the world's dark, all layered on top of each other like blankets, heavy and warm and present. The darkness is not gone. It will not go away. It is a permanent condition of being alive. And the permanence is not a threat but a fact. And the fact is not a tragedy but a context. And the context is not a prison but a landscape. And the landscape, if you tilt your head, if you soften your eyes, if you let the tension drain from your shoulders and the worry drain from your mind, is not hostile. It is simply dark. And the dark is a place where you can rest. The show's final gift is this: the knowledge that the dark is not the enemy. The dark is the place where the stories are told, the place where the voices gather and the images form and the feelings rise and settle like weather. The dark is where Aang grieves and Iroh sings and Azula screams and Zuko heals and Katara rages and Toph punches and Sokka plans and Appa flies and Momo perches on a shoulder and the cabbage merchant loses another cart. The dark is full. The dark is where you are. And the dark, tonight, is gentle. There is one more darkness to address, and it is the darkness that the show's creators carried with them throughout the production. The darkness of knowing that you are making something for children that contains things that most adults would not put in front of children. Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino have spoken, in interviews and at conventions, about the battles they fought with the network. Nickelodeon wanted a show for boys. They got a show for everyone. Nickelodeon wanted clear villains and clear heroes. They got Zuko, who was both. Nickelodeon wanted episodes that stood alone. They got a serialized narrative that demanded you watch every episode in order or miss the threads that connected one season to the next. Nickelodeon wanted something safe. They got a show about genocide and child abuse and brainwashing, and the moral complexity of violence wrapped in bright colors and animal companions and slapstick comedy, and the wrapping was so effective that the darkness got through. The darkness got through because it was true. This is the simplest explanation and the most accurate. Children can sense when a story is lying to them. They can sense when the stakes are artificial, when the danger is performative, when the resolution is predetermined. And they reject it. They may not be able to articulate the rejection. They may not know why the story fails to hold their attention, or why the stakes feel hollow, or why the ending feels cheap. But they know. Children are the most honest audience in the world, because they have not yet learned to pretend that a bad story is a good one. Avatar is a good story. It is a good story because it does not pretend. It does not pretend that the world is safe. It does not pretend that good always wins. It does not pretend that damage heals cleanly, or that loss can be reversed, or that the people who hurt you will be punished, or that the people you love will always come back. It tells you the truth, and the truth, delivered through bending and mythology and humor and heartbreak, lands with the force of recognition. This is what the world is like. This is what it feels like to lose someone. This is what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. This is what it feels like to carry a wound that will not heal. This is what it feels like to be in the dark. The show has been off the air since 2008. That is 18 years. And in those 18 years, the children who watched it have grown up. They have jobs and relationships and children of their own. And they still talk about Avatar. They still watch it. They still cry during Iroh's song. They still flinch when Ozai burns Zuko. They still feel the weight of the empty temple and the silence of the sky, and the scream of a girl chained to a grating in the courtyard of her own home. The show endures because the darkness endures, not the violence or the spectacle, which fade. Not the mythology or the world building, which become familiar. The darkness, the emotional darkness, the honest, compassionate, unflinching darkness that a show on Nickelodeon gave to its audience, and that its audience has never put down. The darkness that is not a burden but a gift. The darkness that says, the world is like this, and you can handle it, and the handling is what makes you strong. And the strength is not the absence of pain, but the capacity to hold pain and still move forward. Still love, still hope, still believe that the next episode might be lighter. The next episode might be lighter. It often is. Avatar follows its darkest episodes with its lightest. After the Southern Air Temple, the next episode is about Koshi Island and the Unagi and Suki and the silliness of Aang, showing off to impress a girl. After Appa's Lost Days, the next sequence involves the group reuniting with Appa in one of the most cathartic scenes in the series. After the Puppet Master, the next episode is a lighter outing that lets the tension release. The show understands rhythm. It understands that darkness needs relief the way music needs silence. It gives you the dark, and then it gives you the light, and then it gives you the dark again, and the alternation is the heartbeat of the series, the systole and diastole that keeps the emotional circulation flowing. You are in the diastole now. The heart is resting, the darkness is settling. The weight is redistributing, spreading across your body like warmth, sinking into your muscles and your bones, and the spaces behind your eyes. The darkness is not pressing down, it is spreading out. It is becoming thinner, it is becoming the air in the room, present but not heavy, there but not threatening, surrounding you without suffocating you. The show taught you this. The show taught you that the dark is not the end. The dark is the space between the episodes, the breath between the words, the silence between the notes. The dark is necessary. The dark is where the rest happens. The dark is where the body repairs and the mind processes, and the emotions settle into the shapes they will hold until the morning. You have carried the darkness long enough. You have held it and felt it and understood it and respected it and not looked away from it. You have done what the show asked. You have been honest with the dark. Now let the dark be honest with you. Let it tell you what it has always told you, what Aang heard in the desert, and Zuko heard in the courtyard, and Iroh heard under the tree. You are here. You are alive. The dark is here too. And the dark is not the enemy. The dark is the place where you rest. Consider the way the show treats water. Water is the element of change. It is also, in the show's hands, the element that carries the most darkness. Katara learns to heal with water. She presses her hands against wounds and the water glows and the wounds close. Healing is her gift, the thing she contributes that no one else in the group can. And the show pairs this gift with its opposite, bloodbending. The same element, the same tradition, the same hands. One application heals, the other enslaves. And the show refuses to let Katara separate the two. It insists, through the structure of the narrative, that the healer and the bloodbender are the same person, that the same hands that close wounds can also control bodies, that the distance between healing and domination is not a philosophical chasm, but a practical choice, made in the moment, under pressure, with the moon overhead. Water freezes, water drowns, water nourishes, water destroys. The element is neutral. It carries no moral charge. It simply responds to the bender's intention, and the bender's intention is shaped by everything the bender has experienced. And the experiences include love and loss and rage and grief, and the full, complicated, contradictory range of human emotion. And the water, which does not judge, which cannot refuse, which flows where it is directed, becomes whatever the bender needs it to be. A shield, a blade, a prison, a lifeline. The Northern Water Tribe Siege is the show's most sustained exploration of water's darkness. The Fire Nation fleet arrives. The waterbenders defend the city. And the defense is not gentle. The waterbenders sink ships. They freeze soldiers. They use the ocean itself as a weapon, turning the environment against the invaders with a totality that is breathtaking. And if you think about it carefully, terrifying. Because the soldiers in those ships are people. They are Fire Nation soldiers, yes. They are the enemy, yes, but they are also people who were following orders, people who had families, people who woke up that morning not knowing that the ocean would swallow them. The show does not dwell on the Fire Nation casualties. It cannot. It is a children's show, and showing the deaths of individual soldiers would cross a line that even Avatar respects. But the casualties are implied. The ships sink. The soldiers fall into freezing water. The water closes over them, and the camera moves on to the next shot, the next bending sequence, the next dramatic moment, and the soldiers are forgotten. Except they are not forgotten because you are thinking about them now, lying in the dark, remembering the shots of sinking ships, and wondering, for perhaps the first time, how many people died in the battle that the show presented as a victory. This is the show's most sophisticated darkness, the darkness of the unexamined consequence, the darkness that sits inside the triumphant moments, invisible until you look for it, devastating once you find it. Every battle in Avatar has this darkness. Every victory is also a defeat, experienced by someone on the other side, someone whose story the show does not tell, someone who went to war and did not come home, someone whose family is still waiting, someone who is as real within the logic of the show's world as Aang and Katara and Zuko, and everyone the camera follows. The show cannot tell all of these stories. No show can. But Avatar, to its credit, hints at them. It gives you the Dai Li agents who were just doing their jobs. It gives you the Fire Nation soldiers who were just following orders. It gives you the war meeting where Zuko objects to the plan to sacrifice a division of new recruits. And the objection is the compassionate response. And the objection is punished. And the punishment tells you everything you need to know about how the Fire Nation treats the people who notice that the gears of war are made of human flesh. The darkness is in the gears. The darkness is in the machinery. The darkness is in the system that takes children and turns them into soldiers, and takes soldiers and turns them into casualties, and takes casualties and turns them into statistics, and takes statistics and turns them into strategy, and takes strategy and turns it into victory and calls the whole process glorious. Avatar does not call the process glorious. Avatar shows you the process from both sides, from the side of the heroes who fight and from the side of the villains who also fight. And the showing reveals that both sides contain the same elements: courage, fear, sacrifice, loss. The same darkness, distributed differently, experienced differently, but fundamentally the same. The fire that burns Zuko's face and the fire that powers Aang's training are the same fire. The water that heals and the water that drowns is the same water. The earth that protects and the earth that imprisons is the same earth. The air that carries Aang across the sky and the air that is absent from Gyatso's lungs is the same air. The elements are not dark. The elements are not light. The elements are what we make of them. And the making is the measure of the person, and the person is the product of the circumstance, and the circumstance is shaped by the system. And the system is built by people who came before, people who had their own circumstances and their own systems and their own darknesses that they passed down, generation after generation, like an inheritance that nobody asked for and nobody can refuse. This is what the show knows. This is the knowledge that makes it dark, and that also, paradoxically, makes it hopeful. Because if the darkness is inherited, then it can be interrupted. If the cycle is maintained by people, then people can break it. If the system is built, then it can be rebuilt. And the rebuilding, which is the show's final promise, which is the thing that Aang and Zuko and Iroh and every character who chose differently represents, is not an ending. It is a beginning. A beginning that requires honesty about the dark. A beginning that requires looking at the machinery and seeing the gears, and understanding that the gears are turning, and that the turning produces both light and shadow, and that the proportion of each is not fixed, is not permanent, is not the way things have to be. The proportion can change. The proportion is changing right now, in the dark, in the quiet, in the space between your breaths, where the stories settle and the darkness softens, and the weight, the tremendous weight of everything the show asked you to carry, begins to feel less like a burden and more like a blanket, heavy, warm, present. There is a scene in The Avatar and the Fire Lord, Book 3, Episode 6, which aired on October 26, 2007. That is easy to rush past because it is embedded in a larger story about Sozin and Roku. The scene takes place at the end of the episode, when Iroh sends Zuko a message from prison. The message tells Zuko to learn the history of his family, and the episode's final revelation is that Roku is Zuko's great-grandfather on his mother's side. That Zuko carries the blood of both the man who started the genocide and the man who tried to stop it. That the war, the entire war, is Zuko's family fighting itself, across generations through the bodies of its descendants. This revelation is dark because it places the war inside Zuko's body. It makes the conflict personal in the most literal way possible. Zuko is not fighting a war between nations. He is fighting a war between genes, between legacies, between the Sozin inside him and the Roku inside him, the Destroyer and the Protector, the Fire Lord and the Avatar, pulling in opposite directions, tearing him apart from the inside. Iroh tells Zuko that the struggle between these two legacies is what makes Zuko special, that the conflict inside him mirrors the conflict in the world, and that Zuko's ability to resolve the inner conflict will determine his ability to resolve the outer one. This is a beautiful sentiment. It is also a terrible burden, because Iroh is telling Zuko that his identity is a battlefield, that he was born into a war that he did not choose, that the peace he seeks in the world must first be achieved in himself. And the achieving is not a single moment of clarity, but a lifetime of work, a daily practice of choosing which grandfather to honor, which legacy to carry, which blood to listen to. The show's treatment of inheritance as darkness runs through every major character. Aang inherits the duty of the Avatar, a duty he did not choose, a responsibility that was placed on him by the accident of reincarnation. Katara inherits the grief of a murdered mother and the responsibility of being the last waterbender, a responsibility that her mother died to protect. Sokka inherits the absence of a father who left to fight a war, and the expectation that he will be the man of the village at an age when he should be playing. Toph inherits her parents' fear and converts it into a cage that she must break to become herself. Zuko inherits a scar and a throne, and a war and two grandfathers who pulled the world in opposite directions. None of them asked for these inheritances. None of them had a choice. And the show's darkness, the deep structural darkness that underlies all the individual dark moments, is the darkness of being born into a story that someone else started. A story that you did not write. A story that you cannot escape because the story is in your blood, in your family, in the shape of your face and the element you bend, and the nation you were born into, and the history that was there before you and that will continue after you, and that does not care what you want because it is larger than wanting. The show's answer to this darkness is not escape. You cannot escape your inheritance. You cannot choose your blood or your nation or your history. The show's answer is transformation. You can take the inheritance and make something new from it. Zuko takes the legacy of Sozin and the legacy of Roku and forges from them a Fire Lord who ends the war instead of continuing it. Aang takes the legacy of the air nomads and transforms it from a grief into a mission. Katara takes the grief of her mother's death and transforms it into the strength that holds the group together. Each character takes the dark thing they were given and makes it into something that, while not light exactly, is no longer purely dark. It is something between the two, something complicated, something honest. The transformation is not complete by the end of the show. It is never complete. The show ends, but the characters' lives continue, and the inheritances continue, and the work of transforming darkness into something usable, something bearable, something that does not crush you but that you carry alongside everything else you carry, that work continues too. The show ends, and the work goes on. The show ends, and the dark goes on. But the dark is different now. The dark has been examined. The dark has been named. The dark has been held up to the light and studied and understood and accepted, not as an enemy, but as a companion, a permanent companion. A companion who was there before the show and who will be there after the show and who is here now, in this room, in this dark, in this breath. The show gave you the tools to sit with the companion. It gave you Aang's grief, which teaches you that loss is survivable. It gave you Katara's rage, which teaches you that anger is not weakness. It gave you Zuko's scar, which teaches you that damage is not destiny. It gave you Iroh's song, which teaches you that the darkest moments can produce the most beautiful music. It gave you Azula's scream, which teaches you that compassion is the appropriate response to destruction. It gave you Appa's cage, which teaches you that captivity is not permanent. It gave you Jet's silence, which teaches you that some questions do not have answers. These are the tools. They are not weapons, they are not shields, they are lenses. They are ways of seeing the dark that make the dark less overwhelming and more navigable. Not less dark. The dark does not get less dark, but the dark gets more knowable. The dark gets more familiar. The dark becomes the kind of dark where you can find your way not because someone turned on a light, but because you learned the shape of the room. You know the shape of this room. You have been in it for hours. You know where the walls are and where the furniture is and where the doors lead. You know the room because the show taught you the room. One dark moment at a time, one episode at a time, one heartbreak at a time. And the knowing is the gift. The knowing is the thing you take with you when the voice stops and the dark settles, and the breathing slows and the stories become dreams and the dreams become sleep. On February 25th, 2005, a 12-year-old boy walked into a room and found a skeleton. The skeleton belonged to the person he loved most in the world. And the boy screamed, and the scream was heard by millions of children. And the children did not look away. They watched, they listened, they felt the darkness settle over them like a blanket. Not warm, but heavy. Not comforting, but honest. And they carried it. They are still carrying it. You are still carrying it. And the carrying is the point. The carrying is the show's gift and its demand. See the dark. Feel the dark. Carry the dark. And then, when you are ready, when the dark has settled and the weight has become familiar, close your eyes and let the dark become something else. Let it become rest. The darkest moments are quiet now. They are here in the dark with you, but they are quiet. And the quiet is not emptiness. The quiet is fullness. The quiet is the space where everything the show gave you, the grief and the beauty and the honesty and the love, gathers and settles and becomes, in the silence, something that feels like peace. If you found something worth carrying away tonight, subscribing helps more than you would think. Thank you for staying. Sleep well. I will see you in the next one.